I should have died 3 times already. The first time I should have died was when I was 15 years old. Back when I was a teenager, I was into surfing. I loved summertime and loved going to the beach and, hanging out with friends and just catching waves every weekend. It was just what I loved doing. Getting up early on a Saturday morning, catching the train to the beach and spending the day surfing. And on one of these occasions when we went for a surf, the surf was pretty flat. All our usual spots, there was no waves. It just wasn't working. So we were walking around the coast trying to find somewhere where to go for a surf. And we found this spot, this nice secluded little bay beach type of thing, but it was rocky and we didn't usually like surfing there because of the rocks. And as you can imagine, surfing on top of rocks isn't a good thing. You don't want to do it if you can avoid it. But here we were, it was the only place that actually had rideable waves, so we decided to take the risk. Now luckily on this day we didn't actually have our surfboards, we just had the bodyboards, so we thought, even if we fall off, it's not going to be too bad. You won't get hurt that much. So here we are, we go out, we're going for a surf, catching waves, and I remember I caught this wave. It was a great wave, and I did a barrel roll in the wave on my bodyboard and thought, this is heaven. And as I got off the wave, I went to put my foot down and my foot went actually in like a crevice or a hole. And I had fins on and my foot got stuck and I couldn't get it out. No biggie. You kind of think, oh yeah, okay, no problem. But it was a problem because I was kind of in the break, not where the waves were smashing on top of me, but not far away from it. So I kept getting bashed by the waves and my foot stuck, so I couldn't go anywhere. I got a board tied to my wrist, which has been taken off with the waves every time they come on top of me, and I was just floundering. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't get my footing. I couldn't get back up because every time I tried, another wave would come and hit me and knock me over. I couldn't actually see what the problem was. I just knew my foot was stuck and I couldn't get it out. I was like pulling on that bastard so hard, like everything I could with all the strength that I could muster to get my foot unstuck. And I started panicking and I'm waving. I'm like, because my mate's out there my mate's out there surfing. We're the only two people out there. There's not another soul around. And I'm waving to him and he's waving back like that I'm just, I don't know what he was thinking, but he just thought I was waving to him. And I'm like, I'm in trouble over here. I need your help. But I couldn't yell out to him because, as I said, the waves just kept bashing over the top of me, just kept smashing me and washing me over. And eventually I'm starting to drink seawater. And then I'm starting to lose breath and I started to panic. I thought, I'm in way big trouble here. I could drown. I had that feeling going that I was going to drown, and so I'm thrashing while I'm thinking I'm going to drown. I'm drowning. I'm trying to thrash to get my foot out of the hole, and all I can remember is seeing my mate way out the back catching waves. And then wave after wave just coming at me and smashing me, and I'm just going back, and I was in a panic. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I don't know how long this lasted for. I don't think it lasted all that long. But then I remember just a calm came over me. It was like, I don't know. I find it hard to explain what it actually was. But a calmness come over me, like I just knew everything was going to be okay. And somehow I calmed down and I was able to get my foot out of my flipper and I could get my foot out of this hole. And I was like so thankful. I was like, oh, thank God for that. Whew. And I pulled my board back into me and I just laid on it and let the waves wash me into shore. And I remember just laying there on like this tiny little beach, just thinking about it. I was like, shit, I was so close to dying. Like, I really thought that I was going to die. I think back to that moment and I'm like, how did I calm myself? What happened? How did this calmness come over me where I I just knew, I just had this feeling, this calmness, like the waves didn't matter, the water didn't matter, everything was going to be all right. And there was like a brief moment where everything was okay and I could get my foot out. There was no waves coming in and knocking me over. I just calmed down, slipped my foot out of the flipper and kind of floated back into the shore. And I couldn't explain it. I had no words for it. I don't know why I was so calm in that moment, and I was able to get out of that situation. I also remember when my mate come in, because here I am laying on the beach like a beach whale, and he's like, "What's happening?" I'm like, "Didn't you see me waving?" He's like, "Yeah, I saw you waving. I just thought you were waving, come over here, there's better waves, but I was having too much fun out the back there." And I was like, "Nah, I had my foot stuck in a hole and I was in trouble. I thought I was drowning." And he sort of laughed it off. He goes, "Well, you got out of it. Don't worry about it." And eventually, I put my flipper back on and got back out there and continued surfing and had a great time. And I never really thought about it again. And then the next time that I should have died was when I was 17 years old. I had my license for about 3 months. And on this particular night, it was a Wednesday night, I just knocked off work and I was working with my sister and I dropped her off kind of on the highway that backs onto my parents' place. And I was going to visit my girlfriend, which lived in the next town. So I didn't want to take my sister home. I just dropped her off and said, "You can walk home from here. It's only 300 metres down the road there. You'll be right." And she said something unusual to me, something she'd never said to me before, which was, "Drive safe." And I'm like, yeah, of course. Well, being a horny teenager, I was like in a rush to get to my girlfriend's place. I was putting the foot down. I wanted to get there and I wanted to get there quick. Now, where I live and where my girlfriend lived, it was kind of a back road. It wasn't a very good road, but I'd driven it, 100 times probably. Maybe not 100 times, but I'd driven it several times. I'd been on that road my whole life. Like, I knew every corner. I knew where everything was. And this particular night didn't seem that it was any different to any other night. And so I'm, hooning along out the back, this backcountry road. I'm the only car on the road. So, I'm going for it. And I see some signs saying roadworks ahead. I'd driven the road virtually every day anyway to get to my girlfriend's place. So I knew where the roadworks were. But the road crew must have, pulled their finger out a bit and got on with the job, because they got a bit further up than where they were the day before. And I come around this corner, I was doing about 80 or 90 kilometres, and I round this corner expecting the roadworks to be up a little bit further. And I thought, I'll get around this corner, I'll back it off and, everything will be sweet. Well, as I said, the road crew must have pulled their finger out and got stuck in that day, because I got around that corner and it was immediately onto the gravel. Now, I had a little 1981 KA Laser, twin carb. It was a little rocket ship for its time. It really had some go behind it. And me only having my license for 3 months, I remember rounding this bend and seeing the dirt road, and I just went, "Oh shit." Because as soon as my car, the little front wheel drive car, hit it, I lost the back end of it and started to kind of power slide around the corner like a drift style. And the only thing that I could remember thinking was, don't jump on the brakes. Just let the car, just try to steer your way out of it. Take your foot off the accelerator, reduce the power. So I did that, but I'd also turned the steering wheel. So then I started doing fishtails up the road, and being a country road with gutters on either side, or, the drainage systems on either side, the back end ended up going kind of off the back of the road, and I rolled the car. And time slowed down. I mean, it nearly came to a complete stop. It was very slow motion. I remember rolling the first time, and I remember the thought was, "Oh, that's not too bad. Everything will be okay. I can still drive the car. Everything will be okay. As long as I land on my wheels, it'll be okay. Just hold on to the steering wheel." That's all the thought that I had. And then it rolled again. And I was like, oh, okay, hold on then, just hold on. Well, it ended up rolling 7 times, and I missed a fence post by this much, and the car landed on its roof. And I got out and I looked at the car and I was like, shit, can't hide this, it's on its roof. There's no way that I can't tell anyone about this, because after the first roll I thought, yeah, it'll be okay. And then when it kept rolling and rolling and rolling and landed on its roof, I was like, oh shit, I can't hide this. There's nothing that I can do to get out of this. I'm going to have to tell somebody. And my mate's house, the same guy that I went surfing with, he just lived down the road a little bit. So I hoofed it up to his place and went and knocked on his door. And his dad's a copper. And it's about 9 o'clock at night, and I'm knocking on his door, and I'm like, is Troy there? Is Troy home? And he's like, nah, Troy's not home. He goes, how did you get here? Because I'm talking like, this is in the country. There's nobody on the roads. There's nobody out there except for farms. He's like, how did you get here? And I'm like, well, I walked. He goes, yeah, walked from where? Like, where's your car? And I'm like, look, can I just use your phone? Because I need to ring my dad. He's like, yeah, of course. So I ring my dad and I'm like, I'm at my mate's place. You're going to have to come and get me. I've had a car crash. And after he's saying, yeah, you okay, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, no problems at all. Not a scratch on me, by the way. So he comes and picks me up. We round the bend and there's police cars. There's all other cars, just people everywhere. And I'm like, oh, shit, here we go. And what had happened was my mate's mum was coming home from work and she drove past and she recognised my car on its roof. And they were all worried because, like, here's a car on its roof, but I'm nowhere to be found and nobody knows where I am. She called the police. She called her husband, who called the police, and then he's like, no, he's here and everything's okay. But they were all in panic because, like, when they arrived on the accident, I was nowhere to be found. So they thought that I might have been thrown out of the car and I'm somewhere in the bush, dead or severely injured or something like that. I'm still thinking nothing of it. I'm just like, oh shit, I've rode off my car. My car's no good. I haven't got a car now. How am I going to get around? And I never thought nothing of it until the next day. My dad said, go on, we better go and have a look at that car, because it'd been taken to a wreckers, obviously. And he's like, we'll go and get all your stuff out of that car. And we show up to the wreckers and this car's totaled. Absolutely totaled. There's not a single panel on it that's not bent or... And I'm looking at this car and I'm looking at it and I'm like, that's pretty unusual. Like, this car's all bent up out of shape, except for where I was sitting. It was like the driver's side door didn't have a dent in it. The roof above my head in the same height, didn't cave in. But the passenger side was caved in. All the back panels were all busted up and crushed up, and all the windows were smashed except for the window on the driver's side where I was sitting. It was like a time capsule, like a little steel enforced, I don't even know the word for it, but it was just perfect where I was sitting. And I'm standing there and I'm looking at this car and I'm like, that's pretty strange. Like, what are the odds of that happening, that I roll a car, from what the police report said, that I had to roll at least 7 times from where they saw the original skid marks to where my car ended up. And they saw where it rolled the first time. So they estimated that it was like 7 rolls. And that whole car was total except for the place where I was sitting. And as I'm standing there and I'm looking at this and I'm reading the police report, I started to think to myself, you've got a guardian angel. Like, somebody protected you from this. And then I started to replay the event on how it actually all unfolded. Somehow, I was very calm during this crisis, like during this action. It's okay. Don't worry. You're safe. You're not going to be hurt. I don't think that that's normal, but for some unknown reason, I was very assured that I wasn't going to be hurt. And then when looking at that car, I was like, whew, somebody's looking out for me. Somebody's definitely up there looking out for me, because looking at the damage on this car, knowing how many times I'd rolled, knowing how close I was to hitting a pretty substantial fence, like a farm fence, those poles in the ground are pretty big. I missed that by inches apparently, and that car was ruined except for the place where I was sitting. And this is when I started to think about my mum. And I started to think, my mum's looking out for me. Without going into this story, because I'll leave this for another time, but my mum died 3 months after she gave birth to me. So I never knew my mum. But I've always then believed that since that car accident, that my mum is my guardian angel and she's looking out for me. And after I rolled that car, I started to believe that I'm not going to die, in that sense. Like, I'm not going to be killed. Nothing's ever going to get me. Like, I'm going to live life for as long as it's going to be for me. I'm going to be able to live it. I'm not going to be sick. Nothing's going to hurt me. Nothing's going to kill me. Now, I'm not a junkie in that way of like thrill seeking. I don't go out looking to prove this point by doing stupid things, but I just had this belief, and that's where it started to grow. But I did test it one more time, unintentionally, of course. I was 20 years old. I'd moved to Sydney, and I got a job as a baggage handler working for Qantas, or I was a contractor to Qantas. And the company that I worked for got a contract to clean a space shuttle that had come to Sydney for an exhibition. And me being the new hire was told, that's where you got to go. You got to go down there and clean this shuttle. Me and some other guys, obviously. So here I was on night shift, because you could only do it at night time, every night, going down into the harbour and to clean this shuttle. And this one night, I think it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm standing on the wing. I've got like a brush thing on a handle, standing on the wing, cleaning this shuttle. And I don't think many people will know, but they're rather slippery. Like, the heat-resistant tiles on these things, you add a bit of soapy water to them, they're rather slippery. So had all the safety gear on, like I was harnessed and all that, because we were working at heights. I'm on this wing and I'm cleaning and I slip. And I go down and I fall off the wing. And I remember as I'm falling, I'm thinking, it's okay, I've got the harness on, I'm not going to hit the ground. Well, me being me at that time, didn't do it right, and I'd had too much, I don't know what you call it, but the harness, the hatch point or whatever you want to call it, I hadn't made it short enough. So I hit the ground. Concrete, pure concrete. And I remember hitting the concrete and I'm like, oh shit. And I have a quick look around. Nobody saw me fall off, so I jumped back up onto my feet and acting like that I didn't fall off the wing. I didn't tell anybody that I fell off the wing either. But when I stood up and I'm looking, first thing is to see if anybody saw, which I said nobody saw. But then I looked down and my head missed a step by that much. It literally was right there next to my head. And I looked at that, and if I had hit that with the back of my head, it's game over. I die. There's no two ways about it. Well, I either would have snapped my head, or I would have smashed my head open, broke my neck, something like that. That far. That's how far it was. And I remember looking at it, looking back up at the wing, looking at the harness that I had on, and then I just remember saying, thanks, Mum. You saved my life again. The thing that I think about mostly when I think about these 3 times is the calmness. Each time, it was like something just put everything into slow motion. Time just slowed right down and a real calmness come over me. And I can clearly remember my thoughts on each of those times. So that was 30 years ago, and I remember it as clear as day. So those were the 3 times that I could have died. I probably should have died in at least one of those events, if not for having my mum on my shoulder and protecting me. So that's my near-death experiences. I don't really want to call them near-death experiences because I didn't die, but that's about as close as I ever want to get to dying without actually dying. And I hope that's not going to be for another at least 50 years. I've got to deal with my wife saying that I'm going to live to 100, so I've still got another 55 years to live up to that deal. But those events have shaped who I am and why I've now really am stepping into this more spiritual person. I resisted it for a long, long time, probably the next 30 years, because now I'm only just starting to embrace it. Now I'm really starting to lean into it, and I'm understanding more things about myself and how I can go about living, that I don't have to live in fear. I should not have to live in fear. I should not be living in fear because of those 3 experiences. I think it's taken me a long time to get to this. I think that it's been a slow build, just putting pieces here and there together. Oh, if you like this video, hit the like and subscribe. Really help me out. Thanks for watching.